So what's the difference between waterfall versus agile versus hybrid approaches? If you're taking your CAPM or your PMP certification, this is a topic you must absolutely know like the back of your hand. Now, as we dive into today's topic, join me in the comments down below. In your current role, do you lead projects using the waterfall approach, or do you use the agile approach? Leave a comment down below so we can learn from each other and build a community right here. So first, what is the waterfall approach? Like a waterfall, which falls down each rock or each step, it means that you're leading a project in a very linear way. It's very rigid and phases must be completed before you start the next one. It's kind of like the Harry Potter series, where all movies take place one after the other. Harry Potter cannot fight Voldemort until he grows as a wizard and gathers all the Horcruxes. In the real world, let me give you an example of an actual project that would use the waterfall approach. Let's say you're building a product that has a very simple design, like the casing on your cell phone. It's not super complex. The requirements are very clearly defined up front. They're not going to change very much, and it's pretty straightforward. So to lead this kind of a project, you'd probably use a waterfall approach with the following activities, one after the other: planning, requirements gathering, analysis, design, build, test, and then final delivery to the customer. I want you to notice here that a large chunk of your planning efforts is done at the very beginning of your project. And not only that, the product is only delivered to the customer at the very end of the project. That's a huge difference when you compare it to the agile approach. Projects that follow a waterfall approach lean on what's called the iron triangle of constraints. At the very top of the triangle, you have the project's scope, which is fixed. It does not have a lot of flexibility to change. Now, in the bottom two corners, these you have time and cost. These have a little bit more flexibility to change as time progresses in your project. That's why with traditional project management, we do our very best to prevent what's called gold plating, where additional scope keeps getting added onto our project's initially defined work. That's where you use what's called a formal change control process to control any requests. It could be from your customer, people from your team, or someone from marketing. We use a change control process to review and gain the buy-in from our leadership before we make changes which could possibly delay your schedule, increase the project's costs, or change the project scope. So as a project manager, it's always a juggling act for us, balancing scope, schedule, and costs, while doing everything in our power to satisfy our customers' needs and delivering the highest quality product that's possible. By the way, make sure to smash that like button if you're getting value out of today's video. It shows me your support and it inspires me to keep creating high quality content just like this. Now let's talk about the agile approach. Agile flips the waterfall approach a full 360 degrees. When we're looking at our typical iron triangle of constraints, Agile follows an inverted triangle. Instead of scope being fixed, we let scope have the flexibility to change, whereas cost and time, those are to remain fixed. In other words, it's our goal using Agile to deliver the most value that we can by a fixed date with a fixed budget. I like to think of being agile as being quick on your feet and learning from your past mistakes so you can keep getting better. It's kind of like Sylvester Stallone in his Rocky movies. Rocky keeps iterating. He keeps improving himself so he can be quick on his feet and beat his opponent in the boxing ring. Agile centers around using incremental and iterative steps to completing a project. These incremental pieces are performed in short development cycles called sprints or iterations. Inside of each sprint, which can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks to finish, the team is responsible for developing a working product and demonstrating it to the customer for feedback. Unlike Waterfall, the customer does not have to wait until the very end of the project, which could take a year or even longer to get an idea of what the product would look like. Now with Agile, the customer is involved in every iteration. They give hands-on feedback at the end of every sprint, and this incremental cycle of development repeats until the final product has been created and delivered to you. Now, if you're not familiar with it, Agile is based upon 4 values from the Agile Manifesto. First, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Second, working software over comprehensive documentation. Third, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And number 4, responding to change over following a plan. There's a lot to unpack here, but the main idea is that Agile prioritizes quick delivery to the customer, adapting to change, and prioritizing team collaboration to get the work done. Let me give you an example of an Agile project. Let's say that your team is using the Scrum framework to develop an e-commerce shopping app on your iPhone. The team has agreed to develop the app in 2-week iterations. Before you begin one of your sprints, you hold a sprint planning session with your team where you go through a product backlog. You review it with your team. What work realistically can be done in the next 2 weeks? This finalized list becomes your sprint backlog. And over the next 2 weeks, your development team, including your programmers and your testers, they do all the work that's necessary to complete all the items so they can meet the definition of done. This work gets visually tracked inside a Kanban board. Every day during your sprint, the team is meeting with a daily stand-up, or what's called a daily scrum, to discuss what work was accomplished previously, what work the team hopes to accomplish today, and what roadblocks are being experienced at the very end of those 2 weeks. That's when the team presents the completed working increment to the customer for feedback. The team also holds what's called a sprint retrospective to discuss what went well and what areas could we perform better as a team. This entire whole cycle of continuously iterating and developing the product, it repeats until the final version is ready to release to the customer. Many of these concepts are covered in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, and you can download my free PMBOK Guide cheat sheet over at alvinthepm.com/PM7. Now let's talk about high level of what the hybrid approach is. This is literally a mixture of using any elements from the predictive and the agile approaches. It's kind of like doing a choose your own adventure kind of thing, where you pick the elements that best fit your organization's needs and the context of your project and the team you're working with. So for example, maybe you stick to doing 100% upfront planning for all the project's work as much as you can in the very beginning, but then you use some agile principles such as a Kanban board and daily scrums to visualize and keep track of your team's work. This is just one very simple example of how you can mix both agile and predictive to manage your project. Another example could be perhaps your team is developing a new electromechanical system used in electric vehicles. But there's 2 components to it. You have a software element and then a mechanical element. The mechanical device itself, that could be created using the Waterfall approach to plan, design, and build the entire product. Now the software side of things, that could be built using the Agile approach to iterate and continuously get customer feedback during every cycle. So question of the day for you, what approach do you use to manage your projects? Is it predictive, agile, or a hybrid mixture of the 2? Comment down below and let's share some of our best practices in our community. Understanding this one difference is one step to managing your projects. The most important concepts are found inside the PMBOK Guide. So watch this video next because I cover everything you need to know, and I'll see you in the next video.